briefly, John, because I thought it'd be quite handy for me to catch up. Yeah,
no problem. Okay, so for those beginners, forgive us, Rachel, if we cover the basics just very briefly. I will just share my screen so we can show everybody what we've got. I had a bit of trouble with screen sharing today. It was kind of a bit temperamental, but I hope it behaves itself a bit better today. Can everybody see that screen okay? Can people see that?
Yes, we can see that.
Great. Okay, lovely. Okay, so this is the home screen of Cuespeak. We've got three main buttons on the app. This button in the middle is the one that the user of the app will press to run the whole program that you've created. And now I'll show you how you go about creating a program, okay, that will run when they press this button. So what you need to do is go to the My Sessions, but actually, can you see my mouse? I'm just thinking, oh, in actual fact, maybe it's, yeah, I think we can actually get the mouse to appear. Oh, there we go. That's good, isn't it? Can you see that? You see that little cursor? So this button in the middle here is the one that people press to run the whole program. This button here is the one that you press to create new sessions and thereby create new exercises. So what you do to create what we do is we create a session per user. So we go down to create new session or user. It might say different words on your version depending on whether you're set to clinician or not. But it'll probably say that. And then you want to go to create your own session. We have actually got some ready-made sessions here. But they're really for people who don't have any kind of support with using Cuespeak, and they just want to go straight in and do some exercises that aren't configured for the individual. So what I'd always encourage people to do is create a session from scratch. Then we go add session, and then we can give a name to the session here. So going to call it Bob. If you're going to use session sharing over the internet, you can turn that on there. And then it will invite you to say whether it's a clinician's device or not. And you put Bob's email address in there at whatever. And then that will automatically fill once you go to send the session over the internet if you need to do that. So once we've done that, we'll go back here and we've now got created Bob's session. So yeah, each of these cards here represents a therapy session. And the blue one is the one that's set to run currently on the home screen. You then want to set some exercises. So you go to this button here, and that will take you through to the exercises within that session. And currently there are none because this is a new blank session. So if we press add new exercise, we get this horribly scary screen here, which is overdue for an update because it's just loads and loads of text. We want to make this much more accessible, and we're going to make it more accessible. But at the moment, it's lots of text. But you don't have to do that much with it, really. I mean, for this particular exercise, for example, you could just actually save this exercise as it is. And oh, hang on a sec. Where are we going? What are we? What's going on here? Oh, we've got no questions. That's interesting. Right. Oh, I think I know what's happened here. We might just need to, I know what happened. Yes, I'm just going to have to do an update because I was messing about with it earlier on. And I think I did a faulty download of new content. So actually, yeah, this is just doing a content update. Okay. This happens automatically once a week. You can do it at any time as well in between. But this is just doing a content update. Content updates, basically what they do is they add all the new questions that are coming into the app. It's different from a version update of the app. Version 8 updates are much less frequent, and they're the kind of the changes to the app, new modules come in and the rest of it. But yeah, content updates happen once a week. So it's easy to not grasp that distinction. So let's try again now. We'll go into this session and hopefully we'll have some content. Yes, here we go. So what we've got here is this green card represents an exercise. And these numbers here tell you how many questions you'll get, 20, from a pool of 2,133 questions for this particular exercise. So what happens with Cuespeak is that you select your kind of parameters for your exercise, And that puts in filters that will filter out any material that doesn't meet the criteria that you specified. So just to give you an example of a QA exercise.
Questions and answers.
Forgive us, that Rachel, you already know about this. If you were resting your head on a pillow, where would you probably be? So the top half of the screen here has got a question in written form and spoken form, and the question is supported by a picture. And in the bottom half of the screen, you've got various ways of helping the person to answer that question. So, you know, you'll ask that question of somebody with aphasia. If you're resting your head on a pillow, where would you probably be? The person may or may not be able to answer that question. If they can, then great. You can move on to the next question, just go there. But if they can't answer it verbally, what at least they can do with this picture multiple choice is they can indicate that they know the answer by pointing to the right picture. So that will help to tell you whether or not they've understood the question and they know the answer at least at some level, even if they can't say it, which is quite a useful piece of information. So if they do say they do know the answer and they point to the bed, then what you will get by default is a cue that will then help them to try and say the word, which goes like this. If your head was on a pillow, you'd probably be in your bed. You hear that there's a little gap there, and then after the gap, it says the answer. And the hope is that in the space of that gap, the person will actually come up with the word. Sometimes they may do that, sometimes they may not. But even if they only manage to do that occasionally, that would indicate that that cue is useful to them, and you can leave it in place. If it's not useful to them, you can take it out. And so with the great thing about Cuespeak is that you can configure the exercises on the fly by going up to this button here, the settings button in the top right-hand corner, and then you can go back into the scary screen. And once you know your way around it, you'll realize that you can change all sorts of nice things. So this particular field here, speech heard on correct selection, that it controls what the people will hear when they touch the target picture. And here it's set to do closure cue followed by a target word. Okay. But you can change that. If the closure cue is no good to them, then you can just have the answer and answer the questions, because there's no point in putting the closure cue in there repeatedly if it's not going to be useful to them. By the way, for the non-speech and language therapists, a closure cue is something like you sleep in a. Okay, so it's a cue that invites the sentence to be completed. And for a lot of people with aphasia, that's effective in cueing the word. And some people with aphasia, it's not effective at all. So only leave it in there if it proves to be useful. So yeah, you've got various options there. You can have the closure cue on its own. That would be good for people for whom it worked well, but they needed a bit longer. You can actually alter the gap between the closure cue and the answer, by the way. Or you can have no feedback at all if you want to. So there's various options there. So that's what QA looks like in its raw state. Now, the way it comes by default, you've got 2,133 questions in the pool. So this is quite useful at the top here. It tells you how many questions you're going to get with your current settings. But that is just unfiltered. So you will literally get really, out of the full range of questions coming through here, you could get really difficult questions about the Dalai Lama or Afghanistan and the Taliban, or you might get really easy questions about keys and beds and this kind of thing. But what you get down here is you get the option to actually filter out and narrow it down to the type of questions that you want. So if at one end of the spectrum you were working with somebody with very severe aphasia who could only answer very simple questions, if any, then you would probably want to make it nice and easy. And the way you can do that, for example, you can go to word frequency. Now, this means how common is the word. So a high frequency word is a common word. So we go for high frequency words. So that would immediately narrow it down to things like keys and beds and shoes. We won't do anything with sets at the moment because that restricts it rather too much. But what we can do here, number of phonemes. Now, phonemes is the technical word. You may have come across this word, but basically it means the number of sounds in the word. And that actually is a more useful measure of the difficulty of a word than the number of letters, because you get a word like 8, for example. It's got, say, 6 letters, but actually it's really easy word because it's only got 2 sounds in it. Whereas So the word 8 has got 6 letters, perhaps. I haven't quite counted them all, but it's only got 2 phonemes. And that's what we really need to know, is how, in terms of how difficult it is to say, its number of phonemes. So what we'll do is we'll restrict the number of phonemes that the answers will entail. Okay, so bed would come into that, because bed's got 3 sounds. So we're going to limit it to 3 sounds, 1, 2, and 3. If you just, by the way, if you just did that, you'd only get 3-letter words. You wouldn't 3 sound words. You wouldn't get words like 8, because that's 2. So you need to include all the ones you want. You can do the same with final sounds, but actually the initial ones probably will restrict. Oh, sorry, that's beg your pardon. No, that's number of phonemes. Yeah, you can control the initial sound of the word as well. Let's just say we want to make it nice and easy, and we want to avoid tricky things like pr and pl. We just want to make it really easy sounds here. Not essential to do that, but well, it depends on the individual, of course. We can say, well, we just want words of 1 syllable if you want. And what you'll see is this number at the top here is coming down. We're down to 74 now, because we've been quite strict. You can also control the amount of general knowledge required, for example, which is quite useful, probably more useful than the language one, actually. So say you want to avoid questions about Dalai Lama and the Pope, then you can just go for easy, you say easy and moderate questions. And we'll see this might come down again now. It's just come down by 1, actually. So we've now got 73 questions, which meet those criteria that you've specified. So if we go back out again now, we'll get...
If you have a lot of cooking apples, what might you make? A pie.
Yeah, the reason it just said a pie there is, rather than you could make a pie, is because I took out the closure queue. Okay, so
if you want to buy a present for someone who loves reading, what could you give them?
A book.
Okay, it's actually using synthetic speech now. We're taking out the closure queue. So Cuespeak has a mixture of real audio for the kind of important stuff like the question, and some synthetic speech for the feedback, which isn't generally considered that so important. What other help have we got? You can hear the question again by touching this button, the blue button. You can hear the closure queue on its own. That's you might buy them. This one here gives the answer in audio, book, and this one here gives a video, book. So if the person is having difficulty saying the word, they might want to tap on the video button, and that will help them to say the answer. So that is QA. There's other useful things you can do with QA in addition to altering the content that comes through it. You can do clever things like hide bits of it. One really useful one is that if you've got somebody who's doing really well with their word finding, you might want to hide the multiple choice bit here at the bottom. That will put more pressure on their word finding. So to do that, you go back into settings, you go to format, and you select naming unpictured items QA2. And when you go back in again now, you'll get the multiple choice will be
What
hidden.
do you write with?
So now, in actual fact, this is an unusual one because there is a picture of the pen in the picture up here, but generally speaking, there won't be a picture of the item in there.
In a hotel room, what's the basic requirement in terms of furniture?
That's just my luck, isn't it? That one's got it in there as well, but I'm sure we'll find one in a second that doesn't.
To play a mouth organ, where do you need to put it?
So there's an example. So with this one, the answer is in your mouth, but it doesn't actually show you the mouth in the picture at the top. So the person has to think of the answer as well as say the answer. So that really ups the kind of cognitive demands of the task. So that is QA in a nutshell. So we've just created one exercise for that client now. We'll create. We probably won't go through all the modules because there's a lot of them. I'll just show you briefly what the range is. There's actually 14 therapy modules in there now. We've got one called Perspectives, and that's all about understanding questions that begin with WH words. So that's understanding questions that begin with words like what, when, who, why. And these kind of questions are particularly tricky for people with aphasia. And this exercise really focuses in on that aspect of it. So understanding WH questions. So quite an important one, that. Sound spell, we were just talking about just now. Sorry, is it Rachel? I've forgotten was it Rachel? Anyway, yeah. So Rachel was mentioning sound spell. So what that is spelling with sounds. I could just show you that very briefly. So what you get is
Sound spell.
Which European country hosts a famous cycle race?
So this is actually, at the moment, it's set up with a question, rather like QA. This picture here is to support the understanding of the question, and that one represents the answer. But just as in QA, you can actually hide either of those pictures. You can hide anything you want really in Cuespeak. But the thing that's different about this spelling task is that as you assemble the spelling, you actually hear the sound of the word of each letter. So like so.
R, A, N, S.
And that can really help people to say the word. So they're really making the link between the written form of the word and the spoken form of the word. So that is sound spell. You can control things like the number of the length of the word, which again would be best controlled by number of phonemes, because this actually is spelling with phonemes, with phoneme being a fancy word for sound. So you can just shorten it to even just 2 sounds if you want. So you could then have really nice, easy ones if you make it just 2 sounds.
What sticky black substance is used when resurfacing roads? Road surfaces are made with a mixture of gravel and tar.
You don't have to have that closure cue. It's only really in there to demonstrate that it's an option. You can go in there and just take it out again very easily like that. Okay, so that is.
If you want to unlock your front door, what do you need?
So that's sound spell. We won't go through them all, as I say, but we've got letter spell, which is similar, but that just spells with letters. We've got syllable sorter, which is spelling with syllables. So that's good for working on longer words. If you have a word like television, and some people would really struggle to say the word television, but with syllable sorter, you actually drag the tiles into position, and it will go te-le-vi-sion as you actually drag them into position. How many letters? That's all about the length of the word. And this is quite nice for people who have a lot of difficulty with writing, but they might have some kind of inkling about the length of the word. So they might see a picture of a bed, and they might think, well, I know it's a short word, it's got 3 letters, but I don't know quite how to write it. That just enables them to. I'll just show you quickly. Just it enables them to just demonstrate
how many letters
they know something about the words. So
Bra, mirror, gym.
get the idea. That's how many letters. We've got rhyme judgment. That's quite a specialist one. It's all about finding the words that rhyme with each other. Asking and offering is a very practical one. That's all about asking for things that is quite popular. So, for example,
asking and.
Where do you do most of your weekly shopping?
So actually, this question is made in the hope that you actually use one of those. You might not use any of those, but there you go. I couldn't fit any more options in. So if the person does choose, just does do their shopping at one of those, they might say, okay, I do my shopping at Asda. So their task then is to try and say the whole sentence, I do most of my shopping at Asda. If they can't do it, then they just click on the one they want, and it will say the sentence for them.
I do most of my shopping at Asda.
It'll say it in synthetic speech, but if they go down here, you'll get the video even to go with it.
I do most of my shopping at Asda.
And whenever you get a sentence video like this, you also get a video for every individual word. And this is really useful for people, not just for people with apraxia, so difficulty articulating words, but also people who have difficulty just getting the words in the right order, and just the sheer processing load of the sentence is a problem for a lot of people with aphasia. So as you tap on each word, you'll see the video.
I do most of my shopping at Asda.
You get the general picture, and then one below it is any polysyllabic words are broken down into individual syllables to make it more manageable. So something like Sainsbury's would be Sainsbury's, broken down like that.
Can I just ask a quick question, John?
Sure,
Just
yeah.
about rhyme judgment.
Yes.
Is rhyme judgment then? Is that about helping the person to think about if they can't say the target word, then thinking about words that rhyme with that word that helps them then to get the target word?
Okay, well, it's a bit more specialist rhyme judgment, because the main purpose of rhyme judgment is actually helping to distinguish. So it's more, in a way, it's probably more of an assessment tool. It's helping the therapist to distinguish between a difficulty physically saying the word and a difficulty actually accessing the word internally. Okay, because the thing about rhyme judgment is that if you're able to succeed in the task that knows that, say that if you're asked to say what key rhymes with one of these, and you know it rhymes with B, what that indicates is that you've got the sound of the word in your head, even if you can't say it. Okay, and now if you have apraxia of speech, you may be able to access the word internally, but you won't be able to say it. So what it does is it helps to demonstrate that the person has that word internally. So it's more of a diagnostic tool. But having said that, it's also useful as a general sort of sound process. So anything that gets people to focus on the sound form of the words is considered to be what we call phonological therapy. So it would be basically sharpening up people's awareness of the sound of the word and the structure of the word. So what it rhymes with is just one aspect of that word's phonology, or the sound information that goes with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, it's probably one of those more specialist ones. I mean, the reason I didn't show it is because it's a bit more niche, I guess. So it's probably not one it's not one of the go-to exercises. Asking and offering we've looked at briefly. Right, send Phil. Rachel, you were mentioning that your guy had difficulties with verbs. I don't know if you've come across this one yet, but send Phil doesn't betray it really from the name. It's not a very good name for the exercise. It should be called something to do with verbs. But actually, when we started doing this exercise, it wasn't just about verbs; it was all sorts of other things. But it's turned out to be best suited to verbs. So this exercise, it's all about verb access within the context of a sentence, which is where they're best worked on, really, because that's where they belong.
If you throw a boomerang, what do you expect it to do?
So your guy who has non-fluent aphasia, so you listen to that question. If you throw a boomerang, what do you expect it to do? He's got to really think now. So what do you expect that boomerang to do? Will he then be able to actually select the answer from these options here? We normally put in some kind of silly ones for a bit of a laugh, so people do get a laugh out of Central because we get some nice silly answers. So if you do choose the wrong one, you'll get something like this.
If you throw a boomerang, you expect it to explode.
Okay, and then
does that sound right?
And then if you click on that, you'll get some spoken feedback.
Not explode.
I've just noticed something about that. It does look really useful, but it doesn't seem to have a closure cue option on there, like the other exercises do.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I think that's we could put a closure cue in, actually. The reason I didn't anyway is because this sort of cues here it effectively is a closure cue. So
if you if you throw a boomerang, you expect it to.
So that's
the verb that fits.
That is actually a closure cue.
Yeah. So if you click the blue question mark underneath, you're getting the same thing.
Yeah. Well, actually, that one just repeats the question. But
I see.
Here effectively act as a closure cue. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm being a bit lazy and not putting a closure cue in there. I should put them. Eventually, I'll probably get around to putting them in as well, because we could add them for sure. But yeah, fair point. Okay, so that's send Phil, and I'm kind of rushing slightly because I want to make sure that we get to the new modules, because they're particularly great, and I don't want to. I want to make sure that we've got enough time to cover those. Sentence sorter. Rachel mentioned that it's kind of sentence anagrams. So that's quite good for people with difficulties assembling sentences. So you get a sentence and you have to sort the tiles into the right order for the sentence. Some of those are quite practical and functional. So asking things like, how is your wife, or how was your weekend? And some of them are more kind of linguistically based around what's called reversible sentences, which are more kind of psycholinguistic. So there's a good old mixture, and you can choose it within your sentence types here. Oh, actually, no, it's probably best to go into sets on this one. What you'll find here is that you've got a selection of options, asking WH questions. I'll just show you one of those actually in a second. Asking WH questions, making comments, greetings. We've also got some more psycholinguistic ones. So the P ones are the kind of the more psycholinguistic. The C ones are the more conversational ones. So if you just look at an example of that.
Stanton.
Someone has had a bad cold. Ask how they're feeling.
So the person just has to drag these into position.
How are you feeling? How are you feeling?
And it'll play back the sentence. Even if you got it wrong, it'll play back the sentence that they've created, and that will help them to tell whether it's right or not. You do get a video with that as well, with a video for every word.
How are you feeling?
You don't get the video with the more psycholinguistic ones actually, because it wouldn't be particularly useful. And the other thing I'd say about that is that you can also pre-fill any of these words you want to give people a kind of kickstart with it. So there's all sorts of options in settings about pre-filling. I mean, there's so many options, configuration options in these things. We'd need a whole day workshop to go through what they all are. But what I would say, actually, this is very handy. You get a help button for each of these fields that tells you what they all do. Okay, so that it's like an built-in user manual in a way. On the subject of user manuals, we've got a new user manual on the website, which is very exciting. We only just finished that recently. So if you go to cuespeak.com, you'll see a tab at the top and it will say user manual, and there's a comprehensive user manual for the entire app there that's constantly being updated. So that's kind of good news. Okay, so that's
a friend tells you,
pardon?
I'm going to see a film tonight. What might you ask her?
Sorry about that. Okay, so no, I'm just going to go out again. Right, so that's sentence sorter. Let's try another new exercise. We're getting through them at a good old rate. Lost my mouse. Where's it gone? Where's my mouse gone? It's not coming onto the screen now. These share options are a little bit temperamental.
You can still see that other mouse, John. It's fine. Just use that one.
Oh, you can use this one, can you?
I can see
you
it.
can see this one.
Yeah, I can see
can
it.
you? That's good.
Yeah.
Can everybody see that? Oh, that's great. I've been worrying that nobody could see that. That's great. Okay. Okay, so what have we got up here? We've got QA. Oh, yes. Right, where are we going? We've got matching module. So matching module this is a kind of real staple of speech and language therapy. Oh, beg your pardon. Real staple of speech and language therapy. Basically, you can match anything to anything. So you can choose here whether you can match a written word, picture, spoken word or phrase, articulation video, or sound effect to any of these. So, for example, if you want to do spoken word to picture matching, you just choose spoken word here. And a picture on this one. It's on that one already. We go back to up to back, and here we'll get spoken word to picture matching.
He is driving.
Okay, so that's actually at the moment that's set to. I know why that. The reason there's only two pictures there is because that's a he and she one. We can actually remove those. Let's see, target word. We'll go into here. We don't want the pronouns. So we're going to do. We'll just do nouns for the moment, maybe nouns and verbs. Okay, just to demonstrate this.
Pigeon.
Pigeon.
Bank.
Bank.
Okay, you'll notice that there are things in here, there are distractors in here that are related to bank. Now that's deliberate because some people have difficulty distinguishing related items such as a bank and a bank card. And this is, well, we'll be getting into more technical stuff of aphasia here, but my mouse is back. That's nice. But you can exclude those if they're too confusing. So you can go in here and you can choose the distractor types. That a particular type of distractor is called an associate distractor. But we're getting into the terrain of more detailed tutorials now. So you can just take out associates by doing select all and take that out. But there we go. There's endless potential with with this one. So one more of those.
Skirt.
One more of those.
Skirt.
Okay. So that's the matching module. But yeah, you can match all sorts of things to all sorts of things. So let's see what we can match. We can have a sound effect matched to a picture. That's quite a nice one. So here you get
matching violin.
Okay. Yeah.
Owl.
You get the idea. So so that's matching module, and in fact, yes, you can match videos and written words, whatever you like. It's very, very flexible, versatile module. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay, so now what have we got? We've got Word Finder. This is a relatively new module. Word Finder is very different from the others in that it doesn't come with any content at all when you first make the exercise. You'll see we've got no questions at all. The reason for that is that you have to decide what words you want to work on. So this is a way of cherry picking the words you want to work on. So you can do anything you want. You can just type in the word you want. Right, I want to practice fish, and there we go. You pick fish off. You type it in there. As long as it comes up in this list, you're in luck. You just click on it there, and it will be added to your list. Let's say we want to work on racing. Okay, so there we go. So no, there's no guarantee that the word is going to come up. So you might say, I want to work on Uzbekistan, you see, which probably isn't going to be in there, and I don't even know how to spell it. So, but if it's not in there, then you'll get a little warning here. You get the option of requesting that word. So you can now tap that, request that word, and it will auto-generate an email that you then just send to us. That comes to me, and I'll put it in. So that is really quite handy. So essentially what this means is you can work on any word you want. And if the word isn't there, we'll put it in, and it will normally be in the same day, or certainly the next day, I'd say the latest, unless I happen to be away for a few days. But generally speaking, it's in there really quickly within a few hours. And the other nice thing about this is that not only does it have thousands and thousands of words, but it's also got lots of people's names in there. So this is really good if you want to help somebody to work on their family names, for example. There's a pretty good chance, unless it's a really obscure name, that the name will be in there. We're not so good yet on the kind of the ethnic minority names, because there's so many of them, that it's hard to know where to start. So we're just being led by what people are requesting. I've put in about the top 100 Indian names, I think, or actually maybe the top 50. But you may well, if you're working with say the Asian community, you might find that there are some names that aren't coming in. But a lot of the standard names will be in there. So say people's family names are Paul, that's going to be in there, and Alice, that's going to be in there. So we've got Rachel there. So and we've got Janice, haven't we? So let's put Janice in. You should be in there. So all those kind of fairly well known. It's basically it's got the top 100 names of the last 80 years in there. So most of them are in there. Also, there's lots of place names. So I don't know if Wakefield's in there, but let's try it. Yep, Wakefield's in there. Let's try Leeds, a few other places in Yorkshire. What have we got? Sheffield. Certainly all the main ones are going to be in there. But again, if it's a smaller town and it's not in there, so maybe Wigan isn't in there, I don't know, but that's not in Yorkshire, is it? Oh, it is in there, actually. I'll try and find one that isn't. Scarborough, is that in there? Oh, let's see, Scarborough. No, Scarborough is in there. I can't find. Anyway, I don't know that many Yorkshire towns. But anyway, there you can request it if it's not in there. So that's Word Finder. Oh no, I should show you what you actually get for your money when you've actually made your exercise. So what you get is a video.
Fish.
Well, that's not what I'm interested in, that one.
Racing. Paul. Alice.
And you get the standard video down on the button here as well.
Alice.
Broken down into the syllables and sounds. So it's really good for practicing saying the word in that respect. But what you also get is you get a spelling task, and this can be configured to various needs. So tap in that box there, and you can go practice writing
Alice.
Practice writing Alice. Up in settings, you can change the nature of that spelling task. There's lots of options. You can make it copying, dictation. You can make it, it's got glimpse mode where it will appear and then disappear. You can just show the first letter. There's all sorts of options there. So it's a real treat of options for spelling words. So really nice for working on family names.
Fish.
And yeah, any words you like, basically. But this is all about really geared towards single words. But the really nice thing is that we've just added a module where you can do the same thing, but with novel sentences. So this has got lots and lots of potential. We've got scripts down at the bottom here. Again, there's no content in there until you put it in. So will somebody volunteer to tell me a bit about themselves? I'll put it in there and I'll test it out to see how successful it is. Rachel, do you want to tell me something about yourself?
I am from Sheffield.
Okay, I'm from Sheffield. Yeah. Anything more?
I like music.
I like music. Any particular types of music?
Jazz.
Especially jazz. Okay. Anything else? Do you have any pets or family or anything like that?
Yeah, I have a dog called Scrappy.
Have a dog. This is great because Scrappy probably won't be in there. Dog, and we'll be able to show what happens then. Scrappy, yeah, lovely. That'll do for now. Okay, so what we do then is we now press generate. Oh, actually, before we go any further, you can also put in a photo. So you might be able to put you might be able to select a photo of your dog, say from your camera roll. So go in there, and I'm just going to pick a picture at random just to demonstrate what happens. But say you might have a picture of Scrappy in there, and then we'll now go back, and yes, okay. So yes, we've now got the script is now complete. So what we do now when we run the exercise is we get this
script.
So there's your sentence with each word is on a separate orange box, and these boxes are very useful because they can do there's three things you can do with them. First of all, you can just listen to the whole script like this.
I'm from Sheffield. I like music, especially jazz. I have a dog called Scrappy.
Okay, but the really nice thing is that you can also, whichever the last word you tapped is, if you tap this button here, you'll get a video for it too. So here we go.
From Sheffield.
Excuse me, I should have put my phone on silent. No. Okay, sorry about that. Oh. Sorry. I'll just. It'll stop in a minute. Sorry about this. I think rather persistent. Okay, so yeah.
I like music, especially jazz. I have.
Okay, finally got rid of that.
I have a dog called
Scrappy.
Okay, so that's what happens. That's what happens when I'm going to have to. It sounds like it's an emergency, maybe. I'm going to have to take this very briefly. Sorry. Hello. Hello.
I was just going to mention something actually about this word finder. While he's doing that. Oh no, he's finished.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm back. I don't know, the person wasn't. Somebody very persistently trying to get in touch with me.
John, I was just going to mention something to people just briefly. When I've tried to use Word Finder, because my person that I work with doesn't have an internet connection, you can't
yes.
really use it if they don't have an internet connection. So if
No.
you work with someone who's in that situation, you
Well,
have to
you won't-
take it home and then update it to get your words that you want, and then
Yes,
bring it back to them.
Even then, you wouldn't get the videos without an internet connection, even if you could load it. So increasingly, Cuespeak is becoming dependent on an internet connection to run. This is really since we've been adding so many videos and so much real audio, which is great, but it does come at the cost that it's not feasible to run it on offline, basically, because it would just take up too much room on the device. So yeah, that is a limitation of Cuespeak now, is that it's becoming increasingly an internet dependent app.
Yeah, I thought I'd just mention that because I'd worked with someone who'd been in that kind of situation. So
yeah, that's really unfortunate. And I mean, yeah, there are some aspects of Cuespeak that will still run okay, but the videos aren't it. And of course, if you take the videos away, then there's limited value probably in something like Word Finder or scripts.
But the other exercises were fine. We've done loads. It's just that particular one. That's all. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's still been useful to some degree.
Yeah.
So yeah, what this is good to demonstrate is because Scrappy's not in the video library. What happens is that reanalyze. Okay, there we go. So what you get is the option to submit that request for that video to be added. So that if I now send that video, that will go to me, and except that my password is not enabled. And I would then add the word Scrappy to the video library, and it would appear shortly as per the Word Finder scenario. So that is script. Oh yeah, there's one other aspect of scripts, and that's that not only can you use it to practice saying the word. By the way, you can move that around the screen if it's in the way. You can also practice writing with it. So if you go down here, tap on the keyboard button, and then you've got a spelling task.
From.
It will tell you what word you have to write next.
Sheffield.
Okay, and so on. So.
Hi.
And there's various other help. This button here will play everything that you've got so far to reorientate you to where you got to.
I'm from Sheffield.
This button here will show all the missing words briefly, as long as you put you're holding it down. This button here will fill the next letter, and so on.
Music.
And that one will go back to showing the videos. So
music.
So on. So you can see that you've got what this effectively creates in just a few seconds. It's really, really quick to create an exercise. You just bang a sentence in there, press the go button, and you've instantly got an exercise to work on saying the words and writing the whole sentence. So that is proving really, really popular module. So that's script. So you can use this for anything you like. So it can be telling people about what you're doing, or a holiday you've got coming up, or a holiday you've just had. It could be practicing a speech for a wedding, or practicing telling a joke, or reciting a poem, or you can use it for writing shopping lists, or writing an email, or anything you like. So it's super flexible. You can just put in your own content and your own images, and you're good to go. So that is scripts. And I think that actually that covers all the modules apart from talking points. And talking points is a kind of a conversation starter module. So
Talking point.
Just to get people.
How is your hearing?
So you get a picture and a bunch of questions about that topic. So if you've ever tried a hearing aid, have you found it helpful?
If you have a spouse or partner, how did you first meet? Which supermarket do you most often use?
And you can sort through the questions and sort the ones that you like. There's various settings where you can choose to have personal sort of directed questions or quiz type questions. And you can also choose the subject matter, although there's not that many questions. There's only 287 topics in there at the moment, but that will be gradually growing over time because it's quite a new module. But we've got questions about the environment or food and drink and the rest of it. So yeah, that's quite nice for groups.
Would you cross a field that had a bull in it?
And so on. So yeah,
Jon, I've got a quick question about that, if that's all right. That talking points. I've used this with somebody, and which is a bit of feedback, and I'm sure you probably had this before. But is there any way that you can have the picture and the questions separate? It's when the questions go over the picture. I've had a little bit of feedback from people that they can't see the picture anymore. Or,
yeah, you can.
So is there any way that you can do that?
Yes, if you go back into settings, then what you've got at the bottom here is you've got show questions from outset, so you can either hide them completely like this, and then reveal them when you want them. So
Have you ever made your own jam?
The questions just won't appear until you press the blue button, and you can also make them go again. So basically, pressing that blue button, or my cursor's gone again. Pressing this blue button will make them appear or disappear.
Okay.
So that's one option. The other option is that you can also make it a smaller window. So use smaller question window at the bottom. Then what you get is this.
Have you ever used a laundrette?
So it doesn't cover the picture then. And then you have to scroll more, smaller window, but again, so.
Do you smoke?
And so on. So yeah, two ways of it not having it obscure the picture. So that really covers all the modules. I mean, there's plenty else to say about Cuespeak. I mean, it covers them very briefly. There's more we could say about them all. I should just mention about managing multiple clients, because you may well be working with more than one person. So you've got a session there for Bob. If you wanted to create another session for Sue, you just go add session and create one for Sue, and so on and there. So there you've got a session for Sue, and then when you want to switch back to Bob, you just touch Bob's session, and that will become the live one. When you touch Sue's session, that will become the live one. And that by live, that means that when you press the button on the home screen, that's the session that will run. So yes, hopefully that will be that will be of some use. Any thoughts at this point? Is there anything else that you particularly sort of burningly wanted to know? Because I've been rabbiting away here. Just see, I can't see you at the moment.
Well, is the other thing just to mention that you can configure the exercises, and then you can email them to the person, can't you? And there's a button on the.
Yeah. So to set that up, sorry, you can see this, can't you? So you go to my sessions, you go to the settings for the session here, and you go enable session sharing here, and set it to clinic, and put your patient email in there. And then once you've done that, when you then press this button on the card, or actually this button's in various places, you can either press this button here, or you can press the home user can press this tiny little button down here on the home screen, or from the exercise screen I think you can press this button, which is being hidden for me at the moment in the top around about here somewhere, but that's being hidden by my toolbar. So you press any of those buttons basically, and what happens is that you get this screen, and provided you've entered the client's email address there, and your own email address here, then you just click send, and that will send that session over the internet, and then the client can send that session back. If you want to save putting your email address in each time, you can go back to this menu on the home screen, session sharing defaults, and if you put your email address in here, you'll never have to type it again when you send a session, because it will automatically be filled from that screen. So yes, that's that. So yeah, the session sharing is obviously very useful if you're working with people remotely. Thanks, James. Yeah, any other questions or any other issues?
I was just going to mention actually, that when I started, the person who did the matching appointment with me had already created all the exercises in Cuespeak. So I didn't have to actually create them from scratch. And I think that was really useful because I just had to go in and just change a couple of things every now and again to make it a bit easier or more difficult, rather than doing it from scratch, having not done it before.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
There
that's
is-
something that Aphasia Support still do when they're first matching people, or.
Well, there is the option
so.
to start with ready-made sessions if it hasn't been done. You know, you can do that. If you find it easier to start with a ready-made session, then tweak it from there. You can certainly do that. And I'll just show you briefly how to do that. So you've got the screen back. So yeah, when you create a new session, and we go here, create new session. Rather than create a blank session here from this one here, you can go to any of these here, and you'll see that there's a description here of the nature of these ready-made sessions. Okay, so that's for people with really quite big difficulties with speech. Down here, you've got one for people with big difficulties with comprehension or whatever, and sessions focusing on more on WH questions or verbs or words. So you can pick ready-made sessions, and then if you when you do that and add the session, you'll then when you then go into the session, you won't have a blank one, but you'll have a ready-made session, and you can then tweak it from there. So that is another option, which would be a bit comparable to what you had from your therapist. And I can understand it's good to have a starting point rather than have to start from scratch every time.
I think Emily and Gemma should do that as a standard in the first appointment. I think that tends to be what they do. I thought that's an interesting point though, because I tend to use those templates as a starting point when I'm, if I'm.
Therapists do actually. I'm trying to encourage therapists to work from scratch because I think the more confident you get at creating exercises from scratch, the more confident you become at configuring them, and you're constantly aware of the options are to configure them. But there's no harm certainly in starting with the ready-made ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's definitely less overwhelming just right from the beginning, just as a volunteer to just have a starting point.
Yeah. Susan, with that sort of, has that been kind of completely overwhelming or manageable to some degree?
I found that was a lot of information in a short space of time.
Yes.
I can understand it. It looks quite a fairly user-friendly interface, but I think I'm going to need the support of my speech and language therapist.
Yeah,
because obviously that's not my qualification. So I'm not going to know the individual client's abilities, am I? And what their challenges are going to be.
No, I mean, hopefully.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, hopefully you will be getting some guidance from a speech and language therapist, and I think that's the best way to start, isn't it? Really, to have some support, and as you get more confident, then
I don't want to be running away with myself and making sessions that are nonsense, and my client, they're not going to benefit my client. And I noticed on the top right hand corner there was a tutorials option as well. Yes. Is that something they can use as an individual without actually having a client attached to it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So there's video tutorials there. The reason I didn't mention them actually is we're planning to wind that down in favor of the website. We're going to make that then a link to the website that itself will have videos on it, but it's going to be there for a little while yet. And it's a fairly decent library of tutorial videos. I'll just show you briefly what you get there. So if you go to you're talking about the tutorial section here, and you've got a collection of videos here, getting to know Cuespeak. So there's an introduction for home users, introduction for speech and language therapist, how to cancel your monthly subscription, very important. View and organize your therapy sessions. So lots of useful videos there. You've got a whole section on remote management or session sharing, as we call it as well, and a troubleshooting section. So yeah, there's plenty there, but all that information's on the website as well. It's quite handy, I suppose, to have it within the app, isn't it? In fact, we will.
Can I make an account then without having to pay for it, or?
Yeah, you can use the whole thing without having to pay for it. I mean, normally what we do anyway, we give a free subscription to Aphasia Support volunteers. So you won't need to pay for a subscription if you're using it on your own device. So we'll give you a license to unlock the full content.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you.
Much better experience to do it like that with the full content rather than the whole thing operates with the very reduced content, but it's not such a good experience because you don't see all the content that the client's going to see. So that's why we prefer to give the licenses.
Yeah. Just with that one, Susan, if you email Ashlyn, volunteer coordinator, and just let her know that you want a promo code. Have you got an Apple iPad? Have you got an Apple device?
No, I'm on Android.
Right, we're running on Android, I'm afraid. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Android.
Yeah.
But we'll be able to loan you a device for a period of time.
Okay.
If I think we've got enough available. And then you can get to know it that way.
So like I say, I've not met my new client yet, so I don't know what her abilities are, if she will be using Cuespeak or I don't know yet.
I'll probably leave it till after the matching appointment.
Yeah,
It might be
okay.
you're not using it. Yeah.
Okay.
Janice, how are you doing? How is that for you? Is it useful or on the scale of useful to overwhelming? How was it for you?
Yeah, that's definitely a lot to take in, but yeah, it's very useful. Thank you.
Great. Anything else we should be covering, Jeff? I don't know. I don't want to exhaust everybody because there's been a lot of information coming at you. Is there anything else do you think, James, that you can think of that is a typical kind of issue that comes up for volunteers that we should be covering?
No, I think that's really good. The one little question I've got in my head, it's a little bit of a technical one, is just one exercise. Is it the sentence sorter or asking and offering? When the person puts the correct words in the sentence, so say it's a 3-word sentence, and it then says it back to the person, doesn't it? Yeah. Is there a way of turning that off?
There isn't, but do you think there should be?
I think that could be a nice little option because sometimes it gives them the answer. I'm only just going on as one person that I've currently been working with.
That sounds to me like an interesting and useful suggestion. So I will put that to Robin. I'll make a note of it. Because sometimes I've found it a bit annoying actually, especially if people are moving quickly. It can be a bit annoying.
Yeah.
So
I think because it turns into a copying exercise, doesn't it? I mean, I think it's good to have it there and then maybe turn it off after a few questions.
Yeah, I'm sure we can add that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, that's the other thing actually. Useful to say that as James pointed out there's something that he'd like to have different about Cuespeak. If there's anything like that, then let us know, because it's incredibly useful to us to have the feedback, because we all have different ways of working, we all have different clients, and if it's not working for you the way it is, let us know and we'll do our best to change it so that it does.
Yeah, but I think your new module, that scripts module, is fantastic. I think
I'm so excited about this one. I can't believe that Robin, because I kind of designed it in my head. I just thought that's probably going to be impossible technically, but Robin did it anyway. I just thought, oh my god, Robin's our programmer, so he's built this module. I thought he was going to say, you're joking, that's impossible, but no, he's done it. So yeah.
Nice, really good. Yeah.
Right then, Jon. Grand. Are we kind of done then for now?
I think so. I've got a little question for you after the recording if you want, but it doesn't need to be included in the recording.
I'll stop the recording then. I'll say thank you everybody for your participation. I'll stay on with James, but thanks everybody else, and good luck with it. And remember that we're here, by the way. Feel free to contact us directly. You can just email me at Jon without an H, so jon@cuespeak.com. You can just email me at any time and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible, very often really quickly, sometimes within minutes, so often at my desk. So very nice to meet you all. Sorry I couldn't see you, Janice, but nice to sort of half meet you, and maybe we'll meet again in both domains at some point. Okay.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jon.
Bye-bye.
You guys. Right then, Jon, that was really good. I just thought I'd stay on because I've not I feel like I'm kind of slowly